Oh,
Hi,
oh good.
everyone, and welcome to my show. Today we have Maz from CarpeCrystals. Hello.
Hi.
I've got some big pieces of crystal from Maz and Ricky, and I really like what they have and their attitude and who they are as people. And so I just wanted to get Maz on to talk about all things crystal because she has a wealth of knowledge. So, all right. Our audience, we've got people who are, very aware of a lot of different things in the spiritual world and people who are a bit more new to things. So I think we should just start at the beginning and then we'll get deeper and deeper into questions for the audience. Okay,
Mm.
so crystals. I think the first thing, what's the difference between a crystal and a rock? Or are all rocks crystals, or how does that work?
So I suppose the word crystal, kind of it really sort of what's the word? Relates to the structure of how something grows. So to say crystal really means that it has a crystalline structure to it. However, the world of crystals and minerals is very, very vast. And it's a term that is kind of a bit of a blanket term. So a rock essentially can very easily also be a crystal, and they're all made up of different minerals, and that sort of thing.
Do rocks
So
grow, or is it only crystals that grow?
crystals, do they grow? Crystals definitely grow. Um, Rocks, I suppose also grows. I mean, they're all minerals. They all started somewhere. Um,
I wonder if rocks still grow or whether but crystals grow extremely slowly, don't they?
yes, like it takes a very, very long time. Sorry about
How are
that.
they formed? Do you know
Um,
how they might be formed in the first place?
so they can be formed in there's like an absolutely loads of different ways. So um, things like obsidian, I mean, technically that's classed as a crystal, but actually it's a type of volcanic glass. Um, so yeah, that's how they kind of start. Then you have things like amethyst, which they're created from like lava flow inside of like caverns. A lot of crystals grow underground or in caves. A lot of them need particular minerals, they have to be under particular conditions, humidity, water, that sort of thing. Some crystals won't grow if there is the presence of water, that sort of thing. And then yeah, Vivianite, super interesting one, we've had that in recently, that actually grows very well on dead bodies, due
What?
to the release of phosphates. So that's a really, really interesting one.
What, in
I'd quite
mass
like
graves or something?
yeah, so you can find Vivianite in things like graveyards, war zones, um that sort of thing. So that's
What does that
yeah,
look like? I've
definitely
never
something.
even heard of Vivianite.
Can you grab me some Vivianite, please? I shall
Your
show you.
glamorous assistant helping out.
Yes.
Yeah, I've never seen Vivianite, and it comes from. Wow, this is new information.
So yeah, this one, if I can show it. So it's like this dark, super dark green. So this is really interesting as well. So when Vivianite is growing, so it's in the ground or on dead bodies, whatever, it starts off as clear. And then when it hits light for like the first time, exposed to light for the first time, that's when it turns color basically from green, and then it can continue to darken to like a really dark blue as well.
Quick, does it do
Um,
it immediately, or does it take a while
it
to?
can do it can do it in a matter of minutes, and it can take longer.
My
And so
goodness,
also when you
like a
get a piece
chameleon
of
crystal,
Vivianite, yeah, a little
almost.
bit. So when anybody buys a piece of Vivianite from us, we always say make sure to keep it out of light, really. I mean, it's worse in sort of sunlight, like to expose it to sunlight for a long period of time, it will go darker. But again, you don't know how quickly that'll happen. So someone could keep a piece in sunlight for a little while, and it could be fine. Some people not very long, and then it'll go really, really dark, and there's no way to bring it back from that either. So it's one thing I've got to be quite careful with, because it's so reactive to light.
That's so strange. How long does it
Yeah.
take to grow then? Does it take a long time to grow?
Yeah. So I mean, I think pretty much all crystals take a really, really long time to grow. So when you've got, I mean, anything like a piece of quartz and any sort of crystal has been there for a very, very long time. So
Like
they have
billions
what
of
they have
years, are we
started.
talking, or millions?
I would say how long in general would you say a crystal takes to grow? It's millions, isn't it? It would be millions, I would say. And that's kind of shown in things like fossils as well. So there's some things like ammonites. They can take on a particular mineral called calcite or septarian. So sometimes you'll crack open a ammonite that's 180 million years old, and it'll have calcite crystals growing inside. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a bit of an idea of how old some of them are. I mean, some crystals are older than others for sure. So there's like the oldest tektite, which is that 30 million? Yeah, 30 million years old. For columbianite, which is a type of tektite which is formed from a meteorite. So it's the same sort of similar thing to moldavite, if you've heard of moldavite, one of the kind of like most popular crystals around at the moment, which is created from a meteorite impact. So again, it's actually a type of glass. So where the material was sort of flung into the atmosphere, so into space, is cooled and then dropped back down again. So they're some of the sort of highest vibrational crystals that there are. And the oldest tektite is columbianite, which is 30 million years old. Moldavite, I think, in comparison, is about 15, is it? Yeah, 15 million. So yeah, they're all very old.
All ancient. Lovely.
Yes.
Okay, so what do crystals do? What's the point of them, and do we need them?
Okay, so obviously I'm going to say yes to this question.
Definitely need them, but what do they actually do? What's the point of them for the people who are unaware?
Yeah, so I think there's kind of a lot of I don't know, a lot of kind of skepticism around crystals and whether they actually, you know, physically do anything. And I think this is definitely something that can be up for debate in a lot of different ways. So for a start, we use crystals in things like watches, cars, laptops, phones, all that sort of thing. And obviously we're all made up of something. We're all made up of atoms, minerals, all the rest of it. And then there are sort of minerals that we actually use. So lepidolite's a really good example. So it's known as the best crystal for depression and anxiety. And it has a really high lithium content, and lithium is actually what they put in most antidepressants. But again, you could also argue sort of mind over matter as well. So when it comes to antidepressants, they actually did a study between, you know, a group of people who are actually on an antidepressant and the others who are on a placebo, and they couldn't actually see a difference between the groups as to who had sort of got better,
Which is why they're trying to ban placebo trials. There's a lot of things about this, but they used crystals in, I think there was a prison where they put a load of quartz crystals in a prison or a quartz wall, and then people's instance of violence like went down significantly. Wow. Yeah, they stopped
interesting.
Yeah, it just came to mind. Yeah, they stopped offending as violently as they did before, and the crime went down, and everyone just got rehabilitated much more easily, and the happiness increased, and all sorts. I think it was in the Netherlands or somewhere in Europe, but you might want to look into that one.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, even recently, actually, we've had one of our wholesale customers. They're actually putting some worry stones into hospitals for the children, things like that, which is really cool. The fact that they're sort of starting to bring sort of holistic therapy over, it seems to be sort of making its way into, you know, mainstream hospitals, things like that, which is really nice to see.
So where do you think the definitions of what they do came from? Because it's quite strange, you know, I've got the Crystal Bible and I'm always looking up what the crystal does, but I just wonder how people came up with those definitions potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just people working with them for so many years. You know, like the use of crystals dates back to, you know, like Egyptian times and sort of even earlier. So I think it's just time that we've spent with certain crystals, and I think it's quite exciting whenever sort of a new find is discovered and things like that, and you hear kind of people's different experiences with them. But I think it is purely that, and there are some crystals that seem really obvious as well. You know, when you say, oh, what's this one's good for, and then you look it up, and like rose quartz, it's pink, it's lovely, it's kind of just got that loving energy about it. And it kind of, even when you don't know anything about crystals, I think you do tend to be quite drawn to the ones that you sort of need at the time. And I think that's always really interesting as well. And that's one thing when somebody comes into our shop and says, I'm totally brand new to crystals, I don't know what should I get, what are the best starter crystals. And I mean, it's fine, I think, to give people advice and say, yeah, starter crystals, rose quartz, amethyst quartz, all the sort of basic starter crystals, as it were. But we do always say, go and see what you're drawn to. And sometimes don't even look at the labels, don't even look at the properties until sort of afterwards. And I think it's really interesting, because then when they see, look up what they're good for, we tell them what they're good for, they're like, oh my God, that's exactly what I need right now. So I think there is a lot of sort of intuition to it as well. But as I say, people have been using crystals for different things for thousands of years.
Like what? What were they using for them for thousands of years ago?
So as I was saying, sort of referencing before, the Egyptians, so they used rose quartz for beauty, skin. They used to put it in sort of make elixirs with it, put it in their water, that sort of thing. It's where sort of, all these face rollers come from, like jade as well. It's another one. And lapis as well is another very, very sort of strongly linked to ancient Egypt, where they would put that. So, well, one, Cleopatra used to, because it's a pigment, the sort of the bright blue in that, if you crush it up, make it into eyeshadow, that sort of thing, eyeliner. But also it's all about sort of wisdom, protection, and lapis was found a lot in the in the tombs and things like that. It's believed to help you cross over. But again, it's similar to sort of symbolism with shapes as well, isn't it? Like the key of life, the ankh, and that sort of thing. And it's kind of what these sort of shapes have power, don't they? Because we sort of believe that they do. And again, I think that sort of goes for crystals as well, whether you believe that they actually do anything or not. It's kind of that sort of mind over matter as well. Either way, does it matter is sort of the question, isn't it? If it helps, it helps.
So I think you guys were telling me there was a problem with lapis at the moment and getting it.
Yeah, for sure. So lapis, I suppose, is a little bit of a conflict mineral. The main sort of location for lapis is Afghanistan, and all the mines now are unfortunately owned by the Taliban. So buying it is kind of funding that, which is obviously something that we as a company don't want to be a part of. And up to probably about a year ago, it was still possible to get some lapis that was old. I mean, because it's something that they've been constantly mining for basically hundreds of years. There was still some that was old enough, basically, that they'd had in store for such a long time. But now our suppliers sort of about six months to a year ago, so it says to us, look, we're coming to the end of that now. The stuff that's sort of pre-Taliban, that's like over 10 to 20 years old. Obviously they're going to continue mining it, so our suppliers in Pakistan, so they would go to the border to get it. And they said to us now that we can't guarantee that it's not new stuff. We're getting, we come to the end of it, we're getting new stuff over. So we kind of sort of said, well, we don't want to buy it anymore. There are other locations for lapis. You can get it in the USA. I think there's some from Russia, but it's not anywhere near the sort of quality that people expect. So for us, that's something that we are going to sort of see as soon as we find a pocket somewhere else that is usable. We'll be buying it from there. So we will no longer be buying any lapis from Afghanistan.
Goodness, isn't that crazy? Is there a lot of sort of blood diamond-y things going on and a bad trade?
Yeah. Crystals, there's definitely like a dark side to crystals, I suppose you could put it that way. So it sounds a bit dramatic. But it's something that as a crystal seller, you have to be extremely aware of and be able to prove where your crystals come from and what sort of practices that you have in place to make sure that your crystals are ethically sourced, if that's something that you're claiming. I mean, there are a lot of crystal sellers out there that don't even try or claim to be, and it is a tough one, because in some countries where sort of safety and the laws around mining aren't very good, they would be doing it anyway, whether you buy it from them or not. So that's always a kind of a point that people throw out there. Oh, well, they're mining anyway. Say something that is, if they're mining for a metal, say, aluminium, gold, that sort of thing, these crystals are just a byproduct, so I'm not doing any harm. So you have to kind of really, it depends what the sort of ethics side of it and what it means to you.
Right.
For us, that's not anything that we aren't comfortable with. We won't be doing, but it is difficult, because obviously these safety measures are different in other countries. So you can say to a guy in the Himalayas, oh, well, are you wearing steel toe cap boots and a hard hat? And they'll laugh at you, because they're like, no, I don't want to do that. That's not helpful for me to climb up a mountain. I don't want steel toe cap boots on, and they've been doing this since they were sort of like 13, 14 years old. Like, this is what they've always done. So it's kind of really deciding where your ethics and your morals lie, and what you are willing to kind of do. So there's supporting families, and then there's kind of supporting a way of life that is not okay. So there are things like crystallized sulfur. That is something that we will never ever sell, and that is because to get it, people have to basically scale the volcano up, back down again. They carry about 100 kilos on their back each way for less than a fiver, and their life expectancy is like 35. They'll have blisters.
What's it called?
Because it's sulfur, crystallized sulfur.
Right.
They'll have like tears streaming down their face, like they're covered in chemicals, like blistered skin, that sort of thing. So that's something that we're like, for instance, that's a crystal we'll never stock, because there's no safe way to get that.
Right. They have to go into the mouth of a volcano. That's horrendous.
Yeah, basically. So that's, just to get some pretty sort of luminous looking stone, it's not, that's not worth it to us at all. So yeah, there's a lot to think about.
So diamonds, they are not as rare as we think they are they?
No. So when it comes, diamonds aren't rare. So what they do, what they do is they limit how much that basically comes out the ground each year, to keep it a rarity, as it were.
Right.
But sorry, Ricky's just walking past. So but what we do when it comes to diamonds, because obviously there's a lot to do with ethics surrounding diamonds as well. So the only diamonds that we use or buy for our jewelry collections is a company called Ocean Diamonds. Now they're actually based in Cornwall, but they go to Namibia, and they have divers who are highly trained, well paid divers that go and literally pick off diamonds off of the ocean floor, so they're not doing any damage, and everyone is safe, highly trained, all the rest of it. And they're completely fully traceable to the location. Each and every diamond that they find is recorded, has its own like code, as it were, and then on their website you can kind of put in your code of your diamond, and it's got its little certificate and all the rest of it. So yeah, they're the only diamond company that we work with that we are comfortable knowing exactly where they've come from and what the whole sort of process that's involved.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? But they must have their own stamping system, because I know that if you just have a diamond without any provenance, it doesn't count, does it? There's a whole thing about that with diamonds, is there?
Yeah. What is it called for the diamonds? Like certification. Can't remember the word.
But it's certification, because if you just have one without the certification, then it's not worth anything. It has to be backed by De Beers or by a big company in some way. What's all that about?
I don't. If I'm honest, I don't really know.
But it's strange, isn't it? Because you can have the same diamond, but if it's what?
I suppose it's to keep it rare, isn't it? It's to keep it exclusive, and that sort of thing, isn't it? That's why there's such a kind of
But they're not the
like so
rarest.
many rules.
But do you think they've got is it the highest vibrational property? Do you think there's a reason for keeping it rare apart from profiteering? Is there something energetic to it as well?
No, I think it's a fully a profiteering thing for sure when it
Yeah.
comes to diamonds, for sure. I mean,
What's
they have
go
lovely
on.
properties. Yeah, sorry.
What's rarer? I think what's rarer than a diamond? Would actually sort of be worth more than a diamond if it wasn't for this profiteering?
Worth more. See, that's really interesting as well, because there are certain crystals that are rarer. So for instance, something like rainbow lattice sunstone, that's an extremely rare stone that only comes from Australia. However, you're probably going to pay like a higher price for a very high quality faceted sapphire or ruby, purely because of, not because it's rare, but because of the quality. Do you see what I mean?
What do you mean by quality? The cut clarity, all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah,
Cut clarity, all the C's.
exactly. So it's not necessarily, a ruby isn't necessarily one of the rarest stones, I wouldn't say, or a sapphire, but it's the quality of it and how it's been cut. And then things like location as well can come into it. So if it's from a location where you don't normally find that sort of thing, that tends to bring up a higher price. I mean, in the crystal world, it's about sort of unusual formation. So maybe this crystal has grown in a way that is like completely unique, that nobody's seen before, or it's grown with another mineral that don't often grow together, that sort of thing. So there's a number of sort of factors when it comes to kind of what is rare, what is the most expensive, that sort of thing. But as far as diamonds are concerned, I think it's just about profiteering, really, to kind of keep them.
Mad, isn't
It's
it?
just something that I think we've done for such a long time, but also they're now sort of doing the whole lab grown diamonds thing as well. So if you're not comfortable not knowing exactly where your diamonds come from, I mean, as I say, ethics wise, the only company that we would trust is Ocean Diamonds, because you've got that complete traceability, and you know who's found that diamond and what's gone into that.
Are they the
But
same
as I
quality
say,
as the ones you would be mining for, the ocean ones? Or are they
well,
different?
apparently, yeah, for sure. I mean, some of them are, I suppose, to me as well, I feel like if it's coming off the ocean floor and it's an incredible quality, like how strong is that diamond? And it's been taken, like, do you know what I mean? It's traveled like miles on the ocean floor, like without, and it's still there. Like, I think that has such I don't know, just a nicer story surrounding it as well. Because diamonds are all about, strength as well and protection. And I just think, I think that's a nicer way about it. But yeah, with the, as you say, with the sort of the lab grown diamonds as well. So if you're not comfortable, being part of that kind of diamond industry, there is the lab grown alternative option. And apparently now they're getting so good. We spoke to an expert recently. They're saying, like, he's been doing it for like 50 years, and it's extremely difficult to tell the difference between a real diamond and a lab grown diamond.
And they're significantly cheaper, aren't they, the lab grown ones?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
cubic zirconia, or have they got different names? Or is that one? Or is
No,
that
it's
different?
not. No, cubic zirconia is a totally different thing, I believe.
What are they just
Yeah.
called lab grown diamonds, or do they have a special name?
Yeah, and then there's moissanite is another one as well, which you can get naturally, but it is like crazy rare. But that's another alternative to diamonds as well. So that's one that another one they tend to grow.
I like alexandrite. Is it alexandrite, the one that changes color?
Yeah, that's super cool.
It's like
I've
there's a
tried my hands on one
greeny,
for a while.
purpley thing, but it's what?
Yeah, it's one we've been trying to get our hands on for a while. It's one that
I know, I asked you
I'd
to
love
get
to
me some. I
start.
really like it, but a lot of it's died. My mum got me some, but it's
Yeah.
died, I think. So it's not quite as authentic. But it's quite expensive, quite difficult to get hold of, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. definitely. So again, I mean, you could
But
say that is one of the rarer, you know, it's a rarer crystal.
What's your favorite crystal? Oh,
Oh, that's a really hard one. My favorite ever is something called green aventurine, which to be honest isn't very pretty. Particularly, it's quite boring, really. It's just a green type of quartz. But properties wise, it's one that I always swear by. I just think it's just a really nice starter crystal as well. So for me, when I sort of just before I started CarpeCrystals, I wasn't in a very good place. And my mum bought me a green aventurine sphere, and I still have that sphere, and I still carry it everywhere with me. And I swear that it changed my life. It's supposed to be really good for success, so kind of ensuring success in every situation. Really good one for social anxiety, like just good luck in general. So yeah, that's one that I really swear by. So I think as well with crystals, you can be really attracted to a crystal because it's pretty, but also just because of its energy. And I think some of the best crystals aren't necessarily that pretty, and green aventurine is definitely one of them. Black tourmaline is another one that people swear by for protection and sort of warding off any sort of negativity and not taking on kind of other people's energy, that sort of thing. But again, it just looks like, you know, just looks like a black piece of coal or something. It's not very exciting. But yeah, and then I suppose prettiness wise would be anything dendritic, like dendritic quartz, that sort of thing. That's also my favorite, all about growth. So it kind of has like fern-like patterns inside from manganese growths. So it almost looks like something growing inside. So that's another one of my favorites as well.
so what are the best sort of starter crystals for people, and what are the properties for anyone who's interested in buying a crystal? I know, but you recommend initially just going into a shop, your shop ideally, or or any shop, and then just feeling their way into it. But what are some of the basics?
Yeah, definitely. I always recommend doing that. But I know that's quite hard for some people who kind of, I don't know, some people don't trust that. They want, you know, they want to be told and they want the advice, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. But I would definitely say rose quartz always is just the best starter crystal. Just has a really like lovely gentle energy. I've only ever met one person that doesn't get on with it in the whole time I've been doing this. They say it makes them sort of just feel a bit itchy and freak out. They really don't like it. Which is really interesting because I feel like it's just the one that most people are drawn to. You know, it's pink, it's pretty, it's, you know, just a really easy one to kind of like get on with, promotes self-love, confidence, really good for kind of like bonding as well, mother and baby. And then clear quartz, really good for focus and warding off sort of any negative energy, like clearing the energy in your home, just a really lovely one to have around. And it's kind of like a master healer, a bit of a heal-all. Clear quartz is also really amplifying, so it's a good one to have around any of your other crystals as well to kind of enhance their properties. So they're the two. I always say green aventurine, not that it's necessarily one of the most well-known, but because of my sort of personal experience with it, that's why I always recommend for kind of like especially social anxiety and obviously just bringing in kind of good luck, wealth, that sort of thing. Another really good starter one would be citrine, which is all about money and abundance and manifesting. It's another really lovely one. And then of course amethyst, everyone's really drawn to amethyst. Good one for sleep, again a really good one for balance and protection as well. So therefore it's really hard because you just start talking and you just start going, oh, and you need this, oh, and you need this and this and this and this. But if I had to just stay with like 5, I think it would probably be those. For sure.
Nice. And clearing crystals, how does one clear a crystal? What are your recommendations? There are a variety of different ways, but what would you recommend? And yeah, how do you clear crystals?
Yes.
And
So
why do you
what
need to clear a crystal?
okay, so I do actually think there's probably a little bit too much what's the word, sort of focus on this, a little bit too much importance put on this. I think some people are like, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, and I've got to do it in all these orders. I think you kind of know personally. I don't think you need to be doing it every week or anything like that. I think you know personally when your crystals need a little bit of a cleanse and a recharge.
Why do they need it in the first place?
So I think if you're working with a crystal a lot, some crystals can take on a lot of very good at transmuting the energy. and are very sort of self-cleansing anyway. There are others that can really take on energy. And I have actually had customers say to me and literally show me pictures of crystals they've been working with a lot, and they have physically darkened, gotten duller, which is really, really interesting. And then I've told them, like, give it a bit of a cleanse, do XYZ, and give it a bit of a break, and then it's like changed back again, which is super, super interesting. So ways of cleansing, we've actually put a kit together of all the different ways of cleansing kind of in one go, because obviously depending on the crystal, it depends how you want to cleanse it. There are some crystals, for instance, that are great to put in water, others which do not do well in water and will ruin them.
Ruin them how? They break, or what does ruin mean?
Yeah, so some of them can kind of degrade in water, and kind of just will eventually break down. It's just not very good for it. Yeah, and sort of can sort of increase the chance of them being like toxic, something like that. So there are lots of crystals you can actually make like an elixir, put it in water and drink it. There are other crystals that you absolutely cannot do that with. For instance, like malachite, you wouldn't want to put into water, things like that. Fluorite, they say you shouldn't do either. But then all the like anything quartz based, you're safe with water, really. So yeah, so water's a really good one. The other one is literally just leaving them out in a full moon. And if you don't want to put them outside because you're worried about them getting like damp or exposed to the elements, just leave on a windowsill. We've got our kit in a jar, so you can put everything in the jar so it's protected. Another one is smoke cleanse. So with sage or incense, that's a really, really nice one to do. And obviously all crystals you can do that with. That one's absolutely fine. Then we have our spray as well, like a cleansing spray, like if you just want to do it quickly. I mean, some people like to make a whole kind of like ritual out of it, especially on a full moon. And then the last one is actually using other crystals. So it's a crystal called selenite, which is completely self-cleansing, and it's really good at cleansing all of your other crystals as well. So you can have a big chunk of that and leave all your crystals on it or around it. That's a really lovely one as well. So as I say, we've put like a kit together to put all those ways of cleansing in one. Yeah, so they're the best ways, but you can use sunlight as well. But again, you have to kind of be a bit careful. Some crystals don't fare too well in the sun. Like for instance, with the Vivianite, you wouldn't want to do it with that.
I wonder if they can change back. I'm just thinking, because you said the negative energy of some of them changes the color of them.
Yeah.
I wonder I don't know if there's any reverse to sunlight or something. I just wonder if there must be a way to, I just always think if something goes up, it must come down. There must be a way.
Yeah. Well, as far as I'm aware, sunlight, once a crystal's kind of been bleached by the sun or made darker by the sun.
But it's not bleached. That's the thing. It's the opposite of bleach. Which is unusual, because normally if you leave something in sunlight, it bleaches, obviously. So for it to go the opposite direction is strange.
Oh, with the Vivianite, yeah. That's really interesting, because when they first discovered Vivianite, I think they thought it was oxidization. So when it was when it hit, sort of had contact with oxygen for the first time, and then later on they realized it's actually the light that was doing it. Yeah, which is quite interesting.
And it's just, well, I suppose it's more sunlight, you said. So it's the UV rays basically which are doing it.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's getting a tan.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's the only crystal that goes darker in sunlight.
But it is like a tan. That's, a lot of the sun bleaches, but on our skin. But maybe it's, I don't know, it makes me wonder if it's like giant skin, or, like something from before, and it's like tanning giant skin or something. But my mind goes down rabbit holes. But I just wonder. I work a lot with Honey, and she thinks that a lot of crystals some of them are, what are they called? Not the tridents, the beat, what are they called, begins with the T? I've forgotten it.
Oh, Atlantis.
No, before them, the Titans. Yeah. She thinks that they are giant body parts, some of them. They're literally the crystallized bones of giants, from the Titan giants, who are massive. So she's got this whole idea about that. So it just makes me think about the Vivianite, because that is actually quite finger looking, isn't it?
Yeah,
you showed
definitely,
me, at least.
Definitely. But I don't know, I feel like maybe that's not that far-fetched. Like things like fossilized wood, for instance, becomes fossilized over time, because crystals and minerals get into all the little cracks of the wood, and literally turn it to stone. So I don't know, maybe you could say that crystals are body parts.
Well, I think well, at least in my mind, part of it is that there's almost like someone who had a Medusa type of head and was turning people to stone
Yeah,
instantaneously. And I wonder if that is a thing, because you've got all these mountain tops that look like sleeping giants or elephants.
yeah.
They look like they are fossilized elephants that are just suddenly there with the big ears. And there are a number of mounds that you think might have been petrified animals, like immediately
Yeah.
turned to stone.
Well, people also believe that things like Lemurians were actually left here or put here for us by either
That's
like,
such a beautiful stone. Have you got any to show?
yeah, I have some really interesting ones here actually. I've got
Because
these
that's
like
so pretty.
Starberry Lemurians, and these are smoky, which is really, 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 really cool. I love these. They've literally just come in, and I just happen to have these around me right now. Then we've got some like tangerine Lemurians. These
So
are
they think
all
that they were
from
brought here by the
Brazil.
Lemurian people. Is that the
Yes,
legend?
yeah, and let me find one that's got like this one. The ridges on this one are so deep. So we call this coding. And it's believed that if you sort of run your fingers or thumb like over the ridges, that you are sort of downloading that information as well. Like these are all encoded with information and knowledge that we are meant to have. And when we find them, when we bring them out of the ground, is when we need that particular information, which I think is quite interesting as well.
Is that like the crystal skull
Yeah.
stuff?
Sorry?
Tell us about the crystal skull stuff, because that's supposed to have information in it, the crystal skulls, aren't they?
Yeah, so I think the oldest crystal skull, I can't remember what the date is, but it dates back something silly, like old. Um,
But
and
they
they
are
were kind
supposed
of,
to be, there's supposed to be 13 of them, isn't there? And they're supposed to actually have
yeah,
almost like a computer hard drive of information in them.
yeah, yeah. I think most of them have been like lost, but there is definitely one somewhere in a museum that is supposed to be like one of the oldest ones found. I read about it in a National Geographic article a while
The
ago.
one in the British Museum's
Um,
not original, though. There's one there which but
no,
it just doesn't want to have any. That's not an original one. That was a carved one, but they were formed or something because they couldn't find any carving marks on them. It looks like they were somehow
yeah.
manifested or formed in some way.
Yeah, no, there's so many. There is a lot of stories surrounding kind of like crystal skulls and where they all began and that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't know about them never being carved.
I don't
I
know. I know it's
mean,
a fascinating idea. So how do they work in? So
yeah,
we started with talking about how quartz was in watches and computers and things like that. What do
yeah.
they do in computers and watches? What's the point of having them there?
So quartz, I think in watches is literally it's that sort of the old style movement inside, isn't it? It's something to do with that. I'm not very technical, if I'm honest, when it comes to how things work. But I know that they do put them in a lot of our technology, and there is a particular mineral and things like that is what makes your phone smart.
Silicon, isn't
Now,
it? They have silicon in a lot of things, I think. Silica.
yeah,
Silicon.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Cobalt is another one. They're putting in all the electric car batteries, that sort of thing. So it's quite ironic, really, because these minerals that they're putting into a lot of the, eco eco things are actually some of the sort of worst mined crystals out there, as it were.
They've
Safety
got children
wise,
digging out
they've
the
got
cobalt, don't
children,
they?
yeah, that are like 4 years old. So we are actually going to be working with a charity recently. We found this amazing charity who are actually based over here as well, who go over there and try and get as many kids out of mines as possible. They're building schools, cafes, all the rest of it. A lot of them don't have parents anymore, that sort of thing. So it's all about support, so they don't have to be in the mines anymore. So yeah, that's someone that we're going to be partnering up with soon. And we are actually hoping to go out and visit in July as well, which would be incredible. So these aren't mines that we use, but at the same time, these mines where they're getting the cobalt from, obviously this is so something called like a byproduct from that is some crystals. So say things like malachite and sal rose. also known as cobalt and calcite. So that is what makes it that bright pink, is the cobalt. So we feel that this is something that we should be very much sort of involved in a way of us giving back. So up until recently, we've been planting trees up in Scotland. £1 donated from every order towards that, and I think we've been trying to find the right charity to pair up with, so we're quite excited about this one. But as I was
Leave
saying,
the details of the
quite,
charity. We'll send them to me and we'll leave them below so people
yeah,
then can go and donate if they're interested.
yeah. So it's quite interesting how we're kind of pushing all this eco stuff, but actually we're not looking at how actually getting the cobalt is, how it's damaging
And the
damaging
lithium
the
for the
planet.
batteries as well. There's lots of
And
lithium,
yeah,
which is probably because, the lithium batteries in our phones and things, isn't it? And
yeah.
in cars and things.
And as I say, they're the things that we use the most, and that everybody has, but also has the worst kind of ethics surrounding them,
Wow.
which is really interesting because, people come to us and say, are your crystals ethically sourced?
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're then going to Primark, buying their clothes from Primark. They all have
Right.
a phone, they all have a TV. Nobody cares where they're made, and what goes into those. So I
Isn't
always
it? There's a
find that really,
disassociation
really
from it, I
interesting.
guess.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I need clothes, I need a TV, but I don't need a crystal. And so I kind of get that, but at the same time, I think a lot with ethics is that you can only do as much as you can do. Like if you can't afford to go and buy pieces of clothing that have been made in the UK and are all, safe and all the rest of it and have been made under the right conditions. If you can't afford to buy that, I totally understand that you've had to go to Primark. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's
And
that
I
side
think
of it as well. But I think
you
it's
kind of have
buying
to weigh it
quality,
up
it's buying
where
one
you
t-shirt
can. Yeah,
rather than five and not having disposable fashion. I do think that people who, it's easy to make things slightly disposable when you're buying them cheaply and they fall apart. If you buy something from someone like Primark, it tends not to last particularly long, and then you end up wanting
yeah,
new things for new seasons and, having disposable fashion. But I think in general, it's better to, if you can afford
mm,
to, buy one piece of something quality rather than five pieces of something less good quality and then recycling
yeah,
them, I guess.
yeah. But it's where materials come from as well. Like it's about everything. I just think it's just quite ironic, isn't it? How we're trying to make the world all eco, but actually, if they knew who mined the stuff for their car battery or for their phone battery or whatever, I think they'd be shocked. But it's not something that is being talked about
Well,
at
I found
all.
that a lot with the masks that people were wearing during COVID, and everybody
Yeah,
got upset about plastic straws, which are bad. We don't want plastic. However, they've gone and everyone been wearing these disposable masks, which are not biodegradable in any way, and it's just
yeah,
it's going to be an abomination for the environment, really.
yeah, yeah.
But
And
there are
that's
ways to
another
fix
thing
them.
that we do, that we try. We try anything for our business. Like our website is like 100% powered by green energy, renewable energy. Our packaging, we have to use bubble wrap. There are some companies that don't use bubble wrap, and I don't understand how they can do that. I can't let them go out without bubble wrap. I can't risk them breaking. But what we do use is it's like an eco version that is like compostable and can biodegrade down much faster than normal bubble wrap. I mean, it's green, it's not very pretty, doesn't look that professional, but we use it because that's another thing that's really important to us. So anything that we use can be broken down quickly, like our packing peanuts, and they literally dissolve in water. So yeah, that sort of thing. I think, when it comes to sort of ethics and sort of consciously running a business, there's lots of things that you can be doing. It's the whole thing. But I suppose as we're saying with clothes, crystals, whatever it is that you're buying, it's kind of like making conscious choices where you can.
It's knowing that it's also knowing that there's a problem in the first place.
Yeah,
And also, what can you do about a TV? I don't know if you can go to LG or to Samsung and just say, is this
yeah,
ethically sourced?
yeah. Have you
It's
got an
not
ethically
really, it's
sourced
just not
TV,
spoken
please?
about. So, well,
Have you got an ethically sourced TV, please?
I know
Like,
you can't really
it's just
walk
like,
into Curry's and ask for that, can you?
I'm like, what? Which is
Yeah, you
interesting,
don't,
isn't it?
it's not something you necessarily consider. Okay, so how can everybody
Yeah.
find you, Maz?
We are on Instagram at CarpeCrystals, Facebook, we have our website, CarpeCrystals.com. I think we're on TikTok now. I think Ricky's just set up Twitter, actually, isn't he? I think we're going to start doing things on. But yeah, Instagram's our main one. And obviously we have our physical store in Maidstone in Kent. Yeah, if you want to actually come and see some crystals, I think that can be quite important. It is hard. I mean, we do our live sales on Instagram, which are really, really fun. We've got such a lovely community of people on there.
When are they? When do you do those?
So we do live sales once or twice a week. We tend to change the days around so that everyone can be involved. We find that if we pick one day and stick to it, there's always someone that misses out. So we do tend to kind of like move them around a little bit. It's usually Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, those sorts of days, but we always announce them like a week in advance on our Instagram and Facebook pages. So yeah, but I do think it is quite nice to see them in real life. But as I say, our Instagram lives are really, really fun. And there's sort of just a really, really lovely community there, and everyone kind of like knows each other, like even people who haven't met. And then we do events in the store when we can as well. I think our next one is going to be in April, where we have free tarot readings. We have in-store tattooist as well, doing like spiritual tattoos. Also, if you get our logo tattooed, you get 20% off crystals for life. We've had much more people do that than we expected. I think we're up to about 30 now, aren't we?
Really?
Which is interesting. Yeah, it's sort of a bit of a joke really when we first opened. We were like, oh ha ha, get our logo tattooed, and then like everybody did it.
Holy smokes,
So,
that is quite mad. Have you got one?
Quite nice. No, and I tell you why, I feel like a little bit of a cop out for not having one, but you can actually see my tattoo in this picture behind. But my one is one that it was kind of actually our logo was inspired by. So I already have one that's super similar, but not quite. So if I did get it done, I'd have to have it the same size on the other side, I think. So it was a bit sort of matchy. Also, it looked strange, I think, anywhere else. But yeah, and they usually finish the day with a free sound bath as well. We move all the tables out the way. We usually have some discounts going on, like some cacao, that sort of thing. So yeah, our in-store events are really, really fun. And then it gives people a chance to kind of like meet who've been like chatting on the live sales and stuff. So that's really, really nice. As well. So
and I'm going to see you at Mind Body Spirit. I think I've got to stand opposite you, the Mind Body Spirit, in May.
Excited. Yeah, we've gone big this year. Our stall's enormous, I believe. Yeah, so that's going to be fun. We did it Mind Body and Spirit last year for the first time. So yeah, this year we're going even bigger and better. It's twice the size. We're going to be bringing some of the big pieces as well. Obviously that's really what we specialize in. We do, of course, all the way down to a tumble stone, but where we sort of really differentiate ourselves, I think, is our biggest statement pieces. So we're going to try and bring as many of those along as possible to that. Yeah. So
I'm scared to be opposite you. Last time I was opposite you, it cost me thousands and thousands, because I ended up buying the amethyst wings from you. So looking at you, if I'm opposite you, I'm going to be staring at you, and I know
all day it's just going to be there.
Dangerous, danger.
Seeing other people, and you're like, oh, they look interested in that piece. I like that piece. Yeah.
That's a dangerous thing. Okay, before we close, is there anything you'd like to tell anyone? Anything about crystals? Anything about you? Anything that you would like to share before we finish our lovely interview?
I think, well, one thing that we're going to start doing recently, we've been discussing, is not just having our Instagram live sales where you can buy crystals, but also talking about different topics. So again, going into more depth about ethics. We'd like to do one about ethics and sourcing, and everything that goes into that, and kind of how we ensure that all our crystals are ethically sourced, and just the lengths that we go to really to make sure of that. Another one was we're thinking of doing some lives as well, where we're talking about your crystals and how to use them. Again, so probably have to be more of a series, so that we can really go into depth of different things, like how to get the most out of your crystals, where to place them in your home, what to do with them. This is something that I think a lot of our followers are kind of crying out for at the moment. They love the crystals and they love the properties, but they want to know how to get the best out of them, whether that's you're trying to manifest something, or
what's the best manifesting stone?
Fulgurite, I would say.
Fulgurite.
So what fulgurite is, it's actually what happens when lightning hits sand. It's a product of that. So it's super interesting stuff. It kind of just looks like an ugly grey gnarled piece of rock, but I think that stuff is in. I've worked with fulgurite a lot, and yeah, I rave about it. I think it's incredible to have that sort of energy that is, you know, it basically sort of encapsulated that energy, hasn't it? Which I just think is insane. So like lightning glass, lightning sand is another name for it, but fulgurite, definitely fulgurite. Citrine is another really good one, of course, green aventurine, and pyrite as well. They're kind of like my favorite manifesting crystals. But yeah, so we want to do some talks about how to use them, what you can do. We've done a few reels on manifesting, that sort of thing, but yeah, I think that's something that we want to sort of talk more about. And then thirdly, also like business advice and that sort of thing. We get asked a lot of questions about how we started, you know, tips, advice, how to deal with certain things, how to deal with growing so quickly. I mean, that's something that I think people are quite fascinated with us in particular, is that we grew very, very quickly. And obviously the sort of challenges around trying to adapt and keep up with your own business is quite interesting. Yeah, so we're going to start doing some more talks about that as well as doing the kind of lives where we're selling things. Yeah.
Lovely. Right, so everyone can find you at CarpeCrystals for the Instagram and the website, CarpeCrystals.com. So we're going to leave all the details below. Yeah, perfect.
Cool.
Anything else? I think we're good. Are we good?
I think that's everything.
I think you've done brilliantly. Well, thank you so much, Maz, for coming on my.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me.
You're super welcome. See you later.
Bye.